Zone 7 Gardening is a series of plant clinics sponsored by the Virginia Cooperative Extension Program of Virginia's two land-grant universities, Virginia Tech and Virginia State University. Staffing our plant clinics are Master Gardeners from the Fairfax County Master Gardeners. Master Gardeners share science-based information about gardening and horticulture topics. Today's program, we'll be talking with our gardeners, Linda and Tanya, who have lots of great information to share with us about two beautiful spring ephemerals growing in Zone 7. For today's talk, our Zoom support is Lisa, Zoom host, also filling in as alternative host, and Marianne, Zoom support. Here I'm showing the USDA plant hardiness map, which is based on the annual average minimum winter temperature for a zone. Gardeners can use this map to determine which plants are most likely to thrive at a location. And you can see here in Fairfax County, we are actually in Zone 7A. This particular map shows Virginia and gives the details. Fairfax County actually straddles Zone 7A and Zone 7B. What this moderate transition zone allows for is the availability of a vast array of plants to create beautiful gardens. Here, we have mild winters without the extremes of cold in the zones to the north of us, nor the extremes of heat in the zones to our south. And one such plant that we can grow here in Fairfax County is the nasturtium, the common nasturtium, Tropielum. It blooms from May to September. The flowers come in red, orange, yellow, and cream. This easy to grow annual likes full sun. However, they perform best in cool summers. So here in Virginia, where our summers can be hot and humid, nasturtiums will do better where the plants get afternoon shade. They are easy to grow because they don't require fertilization, have no serious insect or disease problems, and can be sown from seed directly in the garden near or after the last spring frost. As our last frost is usually sometime in April, now is a good time to plant nasturtiums. Additionally, established plants may self-seed year after year. There are two types of nasturtiums: dwarf bushy types, which are effective in garden beds, and climbing types, which need the support of a trellis or fence. Nasturtium flowers and leaves are edible and have a peppery flavor. So if you're looking for an entree into foodscaping, you may want to grow some nasturtiums in your yard this year. A word of caution, however, since nasturtiums are the host plant for the larvae or caterpillars of the white cabbage butterfly, Piercis rapei, you may not want to grow nasturtiums if you're also growing vegetables in the cabbage or mustard family, because these two families are the same host plant for this butterfly. The cruciferæ or cabbage family includes several popular vegetables: broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, and kale. I'll close by sharing a quote from a fellow master gardener. She shared, "One of my earliest memories of working at the Master Gardener Help Desk was taking a call from someone who had planted a butterfly garden but had no butterflies. A minute later, she told me the other problem she had with her garden that year was an infestation of caterpillars, which she had finally eradicated. Unfortunately, those caterpillars would have been her butterflies. Therein lies a very important lesson. Do not kill the caterpillars if you want the butterflies." Now let's turn to today's program. It will be about some perennial yet ephemeral plants that grow well in Zone 7. This noon hour, Linda will be sharing information about Virginia bluebells, and Tanya plans to talk with us about yellow trillium. Both plants are native, ephemeral, and blooming right now. So let's get started. Good afternoon, Linda.
Good afternoon, Kathleen, and thank you. I'll be discussing Virginia bluebells, Martensia virginica. They were the 1989 Virginia Wildflower of the Year. Here's a picture I took in late April at Riverbend Park in Great Falls. What a beautiful sight. A widespread carpet of bluebells as far as you can see.
That's gorgeous, Linda. How did Virginia bluebells get its name?
Well, Kathleen, Virginia bluebells got its name from Carl Linnaeus, the Swedish botanist. He named the genus Martensia to honor the 18th century German botanist Franz Martens and the colony of Virginia where it was first observed. There are many common names. Here are a few: Virginia cowslip, Roanoke bells, lugworts, old ladies' bonnets, and oyster leaf. Supposedly, they taste like oysters when cooked. However, Virginia bluebells contain some toxins, so to be safe, don't eat them.
Linda, I understand right now is a good time to find Virginia bluebells in the wild. Where do they like to grow?
Yes, Virginia bluebells are one of the first signs of spring, as are the daffodils in my yard. They grow March through May, and they are short-lived, and the foliage dies back or goes dormant in the summer and reappears next spring. Here's a picture I took in late May on the banks of the Potomac River in Riverbend Park. Bluebells grow along the stream banks, the low moist woods, and the floodplains. They like to be moist but not wet, medium to rich alluvial soils that are neutral to slightly acidic. They grow individually in multi-stemmed clumps and in large colonies, such as the ones here in Riverbend.
If I want to grow this native plant in my home garden, Linda, how large will it get? And what kind of conditions do I need to provide?
Virginia bluebells are a native herbaceous perennial. They're also known as forbs and then wildflowers and ephemerals, as Kathleen said. They grow in USDA hardiness zones 3 through 8 as clumps up to 2.5 feet tall and up to 1.5 feet wide. They prefer rich soils composed of leaf litter that are well drained with a pH of 4.5 to 8.0, clay or loam that is moist to wet. They spread by rhizomes and seeds and are among the easiest wildflowers to grow since they reseed freely. Note the rhizomes will not tolerate poorly drained soil that stays boggy year-round. They like part shade to full shade, and they are growing on the east side of my house so they get morning sun.
So, Linda, it sounds like they're likely to spread. I'm wondering though, will they make a good cut flower?
Yes, they do spread. The first leaves appear as purple, smooth, and oval, as seen in the top photo. They kind of look like purple mouse ears just popping up through the leaf litter. As they grow, the lower leaves are ovate, floppy, bluish green, and can get up to 4 to 5 inches long, alternate in tapering into the stems. The smooth stems are nearly hollow, so the plants are fragile and will break readily. Thus, they do not make a good cut flower. The branch stems are mostly green, but may be tinged purple at the base.
Oh, so the stems are not very sturdy, and Virginia bluebells will not serve well as a cut flower. Of course, I wouldn't be cutting flowers from wild plants, but I would like to see them in the wild. When will wild plants likely be blooming? And are the flowers always blue? Oops. Linda, unfortunately, you're muted. So will the flowers always be blue?
Sorry about that. They're blooming right now. Virginia bluebells bloom for about a 3-week period in March through April. Loose clusters of flowers form at the ends of the arch stems. The oldest flowers are at the top of the cluster. The hanging bell-shaped clusters of flowers up to 1 inch long are composed of 5 petals fused into a tube. The purplish pink buds open to the sky blue flowers with a delicate sweet fragrance. The pollinated flowers produce 4 wrinkled hard black seeds.
Linda, I'm curious, how do these beautiful wildflowers benefit wildlife? I'm wondering, because those tube-like blossoms suggest to me they might even be pollinated by hummingbirds. Is that possible?
They are indeed. Bluebells tolerate rabbits and black walnut. They are intolerant of waterlogged winter soil. There are no serious insects or disease problems, and the good thing, they are seldom damaged by deer. The flowers are pollinated by honeybees, long-tongued native bees, butterflies, bumblebees, sphinx moths, and then the hummingbirds. And the mass plantings provide cover for wildlife. Some Native American tribes did have some medical uses for the bluebells. The Cherokee tribe used the plant to treat whooping cough and tuberculosis and other respiratory elements.
That's interesting, Linda. You know, I've already got an established garden, so I'd like to know what plants make good companions for bluebells.
Plant bluebells along the edge of a woodland path or as in clumps in the shaded flower borders. Plant them with other flowers such as the yellow trillium that we're going to hear about, or spring bulbs such as daffodils. The foliage goes dormant in the summer, so overplant with later spreading perennials such as ferns, hostas, and astilbe, or even hellebores that will cover the area when the bluebell foliage dies back. It is a good idea to mark the location to avoid digging up or planting directly on top when they go dormant. Bluebells have a long taproot, so once established, they don't like to be disturbed. Here's a picture of my bluebells in late May. Note the red arrows planted along the path on the east side of my house. By this time, their stems have gotten leggy and floppy, and they've stopped blooming and formed the pods holding their seeds. They are planted with a mixture of perennials, native and non-native, such as I have planted spiderwort, daylilies, black-eyed Susans, feverfew, which is a herb, butterfly weed, bleeding heart, the daffodils, and Bruneria, which is in the forget-me-not family. They're also the bluebells are also in that family as well. Other plants include Seldane poppy and astilbe.
Your garden is absolutely gorgeous, Linda. But I'm curious, where might I be able to see Virginia bluebells in their native habitat?
Virginia bluebells can be seen in the open woods and the bottomlands from New York to South Carolina and west from Minnesota, Kansas, and down to Alabama. The Virginia bluebells are particularly abundant in our area in the Potomac Rivershed and along the Shenandoah and Capon rivers. Blue Run Regional Park in Centerville claims the largest stand of bluebells on the East Coast. There's hundreds of acres of bluebells that carpet the low woodlands along the banks of the Bull Run and Cub Run, where annual flooding has helped them spread. Another local park is Riverbend Park in Great Falls. So get out, take a walk, and enjoy the bluebells in April. Enjoy them in the wild, but do not harvest them.
Thank you, Linda. These are some of her references.
Yes, thank you. And the next chart as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathleen.
You're welcome. We'll have time for questions after we talk about yellow trillium. So Tanya plans to talk with us about yellow trillium, and maybe you noticed it's a good companion plant with the bluebells.
Thank you, Kathleen. Linda, you're a tough act to follow. So much great information that you shared.
Thank you.
So I'm going to talk to you guys about one of my new favorite native plants, the Trillium Luteinum, commonly known as the yellow trillium or the yellow toadshade. These gorgeous little flowers are found from Georgia through Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, and here in Virginia. They've also been spotted in parts of Michigan and even Ontario, Canada, though the experts suggest that they might have been transplanted up there. They're found in moist soils and woodland areas, though in my trip last week to the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, I discovered that they are easily found near woodland paths, both paved and unpaved, all along the roadways and up and down the hills all over Gatlinburg and that area of the mountains. We saw single specimens at the edges of woodland parking lots and colonies of large numbers of yellow trillium on steep inclines, easily visible from the paved paths.
Sounds like you visited Tennessee at the perfect time for Trillium, Tanya. What are the distinguishing characteristics of the yellow trillium?
The yellow trillium are easily identified by their characteristic three-petaled yellow flowers sitting atop their three mottled bracts that look like, but are not, true leaves, though they do perform photosynthesis like a leaf would do. They're technically flowering scapes, long, leafless, flowering stalks coming directly from a root. Many describe their bracts as appearing just like the sunlight appears on the forest floor through the taller trees, dappled. Sometimes the blooms smell like lemon, and sometimes they're a little less pleasant. They grow to a height of about 12 to 15 inches and are a bit smaller than that in spread. They do need regular watering or a moist environment, and they will generally die down in July or August. They're sometimes referred to as the yellow toadshade because they almost look like a little umbrella, creating the perfect shady spot for a toad.
My property borders the woods. How can I get a mass of these? They're absolutely beautiful. I'd love to grow them in my garden.
That is a great question that my family asked after we saw so many in Tennessee. While they are actually easily grown in a woodland setting, they are difficult to propagate from seed and they don't transplant well. The mature yellow trilliums grow from rhizomes. It can take 1 or 2 years for the trillium seeds to germinate, and after that, it can take up to 7 years for the plants to bloom, even in ideal conditions of humus-rich, moist, well-drained soil in part to full shade. It simply takes a while for those rhizomes to get established. So those amazing drifts in the pictures would take quite a few years to have in our own yards. And as an active duty military family, we'll probably have to wait till retirement so we're in a house long enough to make it happen, but maybe you can do it, Kathleen.
Maybe. Actually, I do have one of the red varieties, and it has expanded from 2 to about 8 plants that I saw just this year, but that's over probably about a decade worth of time. So anyway, I'm familiar with the reddish variety of these trilliums. Are they related to the yellow trillium?
So before I started my research for this, I was only familiar with that reddish variety you're talking about, and the ones with larger white flowers that are kind of nodding and erect from the 3 green bracts. I learned that the yellow trillium and its lookalikes are actually sessile, or sesame, as they say in North Carolina. The flower doesn't have a stem and looks like it's sitting directly on top of those green bracts. Originally, the yellow trillium was thought to be a variation of one of those similar varieties, but it was determined to be its own species about 30 years ago. As you can see in the photos, it's very similar in form to the Trillium verity, the green one, and the Trillium cuneatum, which is the one we probably knew about, the original toad shade, the red, maroon, or brownish variety that most of us have seen before. And that one's also found in our area, but it's usually more abundant further south.
Okay, that explains these others that I've seen. So what are the benefits of the yellow trillium? Do they attract pollinators?
They do, and other than my new infatuation with the beauty of this early spring bloomer, bees and flies are both attracted to the yellow flowers. Bees are attracted to the yellow color and sometimes the lemon scent, and the flies are sometimes attracted to those ones that don't smell quite as great. Once they go to seed, ants are attracted to the elaiosome, the fatty part of the seed, so they act as dispersal agents for us. Just remember, it could take 8 years or so for that little seed to turn into a blooming yellow trillium. There may have been medicinal uses of the trillium before the widespread settling of North America. The Native Americans used them to induce labor and childbirth, as an astringent to stop nosebleeds, and as a treatment for sores and insect stings. They aren't really common enough to collect and eat anymore, but they once were.
Can you tell us what plants grow well with the yellow trillium and where can I find them in our area, please?
Sure. As I mentioned before, I found them growing along paved paths near woodland areas in the Smoky Mountains. The Prince William Wildflower Society suggests that you can find sessile trillium in abundance by going to Great Falls Park, Riverbend Park, Balls Bluff Park, and other sites along the Potomac River, wherever you find a nice wooded area. Coming up on April 30th, the Virginia Native Plant Society will be taking a trillium walk through the G. Richard Thompson Wildlife Management Area. Marianne, could you drop the link of information for that walk into the chat, please, ma'am? As for the home garden, on the right side of the slide, you can see a picture from our Zoom hostess Marianne's own yard. You can see a small stand of yellow trillium pictured with daffodils and azalea. There's also hellebore there that you might not be able to see. But note that those are 12 years old. So they're slow to spread, but gorgeous and totally worth it. Planting them in your yard with other shade-loving plants that can be left to live and grow without disturbance will be your best pairing. And of course, the Virginia bluebells are a great companion.
I know absolutely I shouldn't be harvesting ephemerals from the wild. So where can I purchase the native plants such as Virginia bluebells and yellow trillium?
Yeah, as you said, we shouldn't take them from the wild, no matter how tempting and how abundant they appear to us. Instead, we should purchase them from ethical native plant nurseries. We recommend that you go to the vnps.org website to find local native plant nurseries and upcoming plant sales. Please check their website and call or email, since they may have limited hours and they might be open only by appointment. On this slide, we've listed some local organizations and nurseries, plus 2 online nurseries for you to find your plants and fill your gardens. Marianne, could you please put a few of those into the chat box, please? And thank you.
And that's great. That's great. And here are Tanya's resources for all the information she just shared with us about yellow trillium. Thank you so much to our gardeners, Linda and Tanya,